You're tuned into Women in Bloom, a mother-daughter personal development podcast for women in their bloom season. Life comes at you fast, and to that we say, bloom anyway.
The first lesson I learned was allowing my heart to break, knowing that I would recover. And so the very first step of my healing journey was surrendering that I don't have to remain like this with what happened.
Good morning, good afternoon, ladies. It took us so much to get on this call.
It did, but it was all worth it.
It was.
It was.
We got the backgrounds in order. We have the energy is most definitely in order. And we did the fit checks. So we're good to go.
Got the tech working.
The tech is working. The tech is working. Listeners, welcome back to Women in Bloom. We are happy to welcome you to our 8th episode. And this is the third in a series of women who are leading and healing boldly. It was something that we started in the midst of Women's History Month, and it is stretching into April. So we just celebrate women all year long. So we're not confining ourselves to a month around here. So y'all bear with us. We are so very excited because we have such a very, very special guest with us. Her name is Rev Coach Tanishia Johnson.
Hi, family.
Hey. Hi. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a great time.
Yes, we are.
Before we get into the tea and just like the conversation, I want to ask listeners to do us a big favor. If you are enjoying Women in Bloom, if you're enjoying our messaging, please do us a favor and like, comment, and subscribe. This helps us so much to gain visibility, to get our messaging out to more women, and to just grow our platform. So that would be absolutely amazing. And at the very least, go ahead and share. Okay. I don't care if it's a reel. I don't care if you're sharing the whole YouTube video or Spotify episode. Just share it with somebody. Okay. Ashe. So that's that. We could introduce our guest today. We could go down a laundry list of personal attributes that make her oh so lovable and special to us. But we are going to go ahead and read this sister's professional bio because it's so robust. So I think this is a great way to introduce. So Eldris, would you do us the honors?
Absolutely. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Tanishia A. Johnson, who is a newly ordained Reverend spiritual life coach and transformational speaker, who believes that to fully live our divine purpose, we must first know who we are. And that begins with knowing the God within. Yes, we start there. On May 3rd, 2025, Tanishia A. Johnson was ordained as a minister and formally bestowed the title of Reverend at the InnerVisions Institute for Spiritual Development, InnerVision Spiritual Sanctuary, under the sacred tutelage of her spiritual teacher, the globally celebrated spiritual luminary, award-winning author, and Emmy-winning television host, Reverend Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, the founder, visionary, and master teacher of the Institute, whose transformative work has impacted millions across the world. Tanishia has served as a school counselor for over 17 years in urban school districts, centering the needs of PK-12 students and families, including expectant and parenting youth. She also served for a decade as adjunct associate professor, supporting first-year college students, and is a contributing author to The Journey of a Teenage Mother, where she shares her powerful story of triumph and purpose. Her commitment to service is reflected in her training in African-centered rites of passage and membership in the Black Women's Leadership Forum. She is a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and a charting member of the Delta Alpha Gamma Zeta chapter. Her work has been honored throughout numerous awards, including being featured in the Democrat and Chronicle as a woman to watch and in Breakthrough Magazine of one of 10 women making history in Rochester, New York. Now based in Chandler, Arizona, Tanishia continues to build her living vision while serving across the country. Her faith is the foundation of all she does, and her greatest joy is being wife to her beloved Corey for 24 years and mother to their 5 purpose-driven children. Getting to know Reverend Coach Tanishia, we're going to turn it over.
Yes, beautiful.
We're going to
Thank
turn
you
it
for
over.
that.
We're going to get to know you now.
Thank you so much for that. To be introduced by one of my spiritual teachers, and I say big mamas. We used to say back in the day, fat mamas, the bonus women in your life who add the extra to your life, is such a blessing and honor. And of course, my beloved sister, the visionary behind In Bloom, is such a blessing for me. You have both blessed my life deeply. I am honored and grateful and humbled to even be in this space and for such an extraordinary introduction. So I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm looking forward to growth, to stretching, for the reciprocity in our offerings, and for our exchange as we always do. Ashe, as we always do. And only thing I'm going to add is we are approaching, beloved and I, 26 years of marriage. I probably should have updated that. I know he's going to be listening to this like, you shorted us 2 years. It'll be 26 in August. And I'm so grateful to be here. You know, our family, our faith is our foundation with our family, and this is our bonus family. And we have been richly blessed. Richly blessed. So thank you.
26 years. Wow.
Yeah, coming up.
I'm just remembering.
Yep. Y'all were there from the very beginning.
I just realized I was muted. We were at the wedding. I remember the
We're there. Yes.
Yep. So incredible to think like, yeah.
Years have gone by so quickly.
It's been a while. It has been a while.
They have. And that kind of shows the connection. You know, you meet people and you be like, I think they know each other, but folks don't really know how well you know people.
Right. No,
Like,
we know each other. We talk way back, like godparents of our children, or the journey, the spiritual journey, the journey in marriage, the journey in parenthood. I'm so grateful to House of Campbell family of Campbell. This is family. This is family. So I am home, literally home.
And I just wanted to share. I just wanted to share one thing that you did for me yesterday. This is about how in relationship we are continually giving, right? So yesterday we went out and I had on a short sleeve shirt and I was like, oh, you know, my arms are looking lumpy, right? And what did you say? You said, girl, what you saying? What about your arms? Not those arms that have carried children,
and exactly, have cradled, have nurtured, have supported in someone's healing, have loved, have all of the things. You know, we're gonna love on our arms. You know, we know Black women, we are the cradle of humanity and every part of our body, and women in general, but I'm speaking about Black women right now. Cradle of humanity. And when we are, you know, our arms are such a important anchor for the beloveds in our lives and how much we hold people in our bosom. And so we're grateful for all the extra flesh we have that supports whatever journey we are in our seasons. And you know, we release the extra when it's ready to go, but it's all purpose for a reason. So gratitude for every part of our body, every layer of it.
It's just like, I just was thinking, the negative talk that we say to ourselves, even in jest. Like, I wasn't thinking negatively, but I really wasn't thinking in an appreciative way, right? About my arms, which have done all of that, right? So I'm just grateful for the continual gift that you are.
Ashe. Well, I have had some master teachers in my life, so thank you, Eldris. Master teacher.
So let's jump right in. You know, when I learned the name of your ministry and your offering, Beyond This Moment, I always was curious about what is the moment? What's the moment that we are looking beyond? And What is the meaning in that? You know, when people name a business, it's never just the name of the business, something cute.
Right, right.
It's deeply rooted somewhere. So tell us about that.
Yes. So what I found years ago when I was working with women and in conversation, there was a lot of concern about because I'm in this family, because I'm in this relationship, because I'm raising my children, I can't see beyond what's happening right now. I can only see in my present, which is important. We want to be present. We want to be present with our experience, our bodies, whatever we're navigating. We want to be present in that. But we also get to look beyond this moment to create because there's more. We are creators. We're one with divine creativity, divine source, divine intelligence. So it's not that we have to do everything now, or it's how we get to be in the moment we're in and what we're navigating and looking beyond that and knowing and trusting that there's more, moving with divine timing. And so I decided to name my business Purpose in the fact that the women that I'm working with, I want to let them know that it's perfectly okay to be in the season that you're in. And there is more. There is more. And my support is in looking at what you can envision beyond where you are right now
Mm,
and supporting you in getting there. And first looking at the foundation of who you are as a soul individualized expression of God.
mm.
I say,
And
I
that was
say,
that was the story behind it. So yes.
beautiful.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful, beautiful, and
Mhm.
powerful. It's so interesting as I'm talking to different women, as we are like kind of Eldris and I are looking at possible guests, and there's an abundance of people who I don't know if it's the 35, 40 age season where a lot of women and I guess it's probably like 35 to 45 where a lot of women kind of find themselves in this very painfully transformative
Mm.
life season.
Mhm.
And it's an experience that is not unique to just one person. And when you see that and you go through it yourself, and maybe you witness it in other women, it becomes so important to just kind of try to be a guide for other folks who are going through.
Mhm.
Like, hey, sis, don't count yourself out. Let's look forward. Let's see what's possible in the infinite realm of possibilities. I mean,
Mhm.
there's so much to reach for.
Yes.
So I just love that. I love beyond this moment. Oh,
Thank you. And it's also for every season. So, I've also worked with women who are looking at their roadmap for the future. So maybe they've been educators for a long time and now they're like, I always wanted to open my own business. I always wanted to write my book. I've always, but as an eldris in this life,
Mhm.
is there more, or should I just go with, what the world says is that, when
Mm.
you retire, you're done, or
Right.
that, that's not so much, but there's even more to
Right.
discover. It's a new adventure.
Right.
And so
mhm.
that is what, my work is the basis for my work is that there's always more. As long as we have breath, we have purpose,
Mm.
regardless of the
Right.
season of life that we're in.
I say,
Yeah.
long as we have
Sure.
breath. I say.
Tanisha, I have always known you to be like a very positive, just a light bringer. And I can't be the first person to tell you that, I know you've heard it probably before. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful gift that you just embody in a very natural way. So I'm curious, what life experiences shaped your path into this work?
Yes. So first of all, light recognizes light, right? So I
Ah, I
see you
say.
lighthouses, you brave hearts on this beautiful souls on this journey. What has been framed for me in my experiences really started within my family and a lot of the unpacking that I needed to do as it relates to my relationship with my parents,
Mhm.
even my grandparents, my siblings. And so where that started was I've always had a deep connection and relationship with God. It was expanded as I got older and started looking at my spiritual practice and how important that became for me. And I think when I look back at my experiences, every morsel of what I learned has gotten me to this place. So
Mm-hmm.
even the experiences that didn't feel so good, even the relationship specifically with me and my mother that has been in tender places, the relationship with me and my dad that has been in tender spaces, and with my siblings, it really started there. And looking at it all relates to what is my relationship with God? What is my relationship with Source? What is my relationship with God within? And
Mm-hmm.
that for me is where the true work began. And I did not unpack that, or let me speak in the affirmative. I began to unpack that in a deeper way when I began my spiritual life coaching journey at the Intervision Institute for Spiritual Development. That was the first place where I learned in order to change your external world, everything begins within. So
Mm-hmm.
what we see energetically we can call into existence, and the amazement of God and how things could shift by a change in our consciousness, by a change in perspective and how we, once viewed a narrative, how
Mm-hmm.
things can shift when we begin to expand deeply spiritually around not just what happened to me, what happened for me, what
Mm-hmm.
happened through me, based on what God was doing in that moment, a deeper, intimate relationship with God. So I started to look at experiences there. So it's no coincidence that the work that I do with women, I see them as mirrors. They all have these tender journeys with their parents, especially with their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
They all have walked journeys that were very tender with other women. And that is my ministry. And so had I not had those experiences in my own background, and I would be on a different journey. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm right where I am, right where I'm supposed to be, still navigating those experiences as well, still healing, still growing. And I keep my energy clear by really staying
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and soft. I keep hearing people saying this is my soft girl era. No, we're just being soft in general.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at, my inner children, y'all know I do a lot of work around my inner child and lending myself compassion the way that
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do that for others, but the more I do it for myself, it lightens me up to give myself a break, allow
Mm-hmm.
myself to weep, allow myself to be vulnerable, not take myself so serious, don't not get caught up in the narrative, and releasing, some things when they're ready to release, because it's a journey. We're on this
Right.
life journey for a long time. So it's definitely a huge contribution to my spiritual practice and my commitment to my grounding practice and staying center
Ashe.
with the
Ashe.
divine. Amen. Ashe.
Yeah. We
Mhm.
know a lot because we know each other so well, right? We know a lot about um, your past, right? We know who you are, right? At
Mhm.
your core. So tell us if you can tell the listeners, right?
Yes.
What did your healing journey actually require of you? Like, what did you
Yes.
have to commit to and do to be
Yes.
in this healing space?
Mhm. The first lesson I learned was allowing my heart to break, knowing that I would recover.
Mm,
And so the very first step of my healing journey was surrendering that I don't have to remain like this with what happened.
mhm,
Some of the um, in some of the experiences that were abusive, that
mhm,
uh, started this trajectory of other painful experiences that I then called in, and patterns that
mm,
I began to create. The beginning was really allowing myself to sit in it, sit in the
mhm.
mess,
Right,
sit in the story that I had been telling, and also lean into self-forgiveness, because the
right.
retelling and the replaying of the story and being attached to it, I began to add more to it. So then
Mm,
became more salacious. I would retell it and re-injure myself and re-injure myself. So
right,
the
right.
initial allowing my heart to break was being with the experience and really unpacking it, but then leaning into some practices around surrender, some
Hmm.
practices and standing in, what it looks like to really be in this divine loving space of, releasing, retelling the story, which keeps us attached to what
Right.
happened. It
To the
happened,
injury, to the
it's not
injury.
happening.
Right.
right? But when we
Right.
retell it, when we keep giving energy to it. And so
Mhm.
initially for me, I had to dig really deep into the wound. What is
Right.
the wound? What,
Right.
let me unpack that. And now let me integrate some of what I
Mhm.
learned. And that was throughout the Institute, learning the practice of self-compassion, how that looks, nurturing my inner child,
Mhm.
reparenting myself, looking at the resilience, and started
Mhm.
to be able to retell my story in a way that was honoring to me and
Mhm.
also lending compassion and forgiveness to my family.
Right.
Because when
Mm.
we
Right.
first are able to do it for ourselves, then we're able to do it
Do it for
for
others.
others. And so
Right.
the first step was really going all the way deep into the heartbreak. Okay, I'm going to go into the story.
Mm.
Mhm.
And once I go into the story and all of the happenings, then moving into this place of what does self-compassion look like? And so I learned some spiritual practices around self-compassion and really
Mm.
healing my inner child and
So
taking my
I'm
inner
gonna,
child on play dates and all the things.
I just wanted you said something about spiritual practice. Like, just give us one little tidbit. Like, what is a spiritual practice that
Yes.
helped you
Oh,
heal?
it's all about our spiritual hygiene. So one of
Right,
my
right.
spiritual practices that I began to engage in, one of my forgiveness projects was actually recording exactly what I wanted to say to the adults in my life that my inner child felt unheard. I
Oh,
recorded.
okay.
I also wrote, engaged then in a burning ceremony of what I wrote. So these are letters that, the folks didn't receive,
Hmm.
but I was able to really unpack and say exactly what I was feeling and what happened and how that happened. So that was one of my forgiveness
Hmm.
practices, in addition to doing recordings. The
Hmm.
other, actually, for me, which I think is important, I started to engage in a daily spiritual hygiene practice. So these are not one and dones. Those are
Hmm.
part of my spiritual hygiene practices when I was walking
Hmm.
out my forgiveness journey and going about healing at a deeper level. But the
Hmm.
basic tenets of spiritual hygiene really was looking at my relationship with God, with Source,
Hmm.
and each day incorporating what felt good for me, not just what I learned, but how do I get to know the essence of God within me at a more intimate level. And
Right,
for
right.
me,
That's it.
creating my altar space, my prayer space, and
Hmm.
being in oneness with spirit, silent meditation,
Hmm.
meditations that aren't silent, walking gratitude. And it also includes the honoring of my ancestors. And so
Hmm.
I learned some of that growing up and watching the practices of my grandmother, but then I learned in a more deeper way as an adult the importance of knowing my ancestors and learning about
Hmm.
spirituality in a deeper way. And
Right.
so I think those, it's what I support women is sometimes, we try to say I have to chuck everything I learned when I'm
Hmm.
creating a spiritual practice, when it's like, what were the things that you did love? I
Hmm.
love rosary beads. So you'll see me one moment with my rosary beads, and then another moment I'll have my mala beads.
Hmm.
And I think what I've learned is I don't have to choose like how
Oh,
my practice
okay.
looks.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so
I
in
love
honoring
that.
myself and my healing journey, it could look different. When I'm feeling heavy, I may take, of course, I know folks say, we just call on Jesus, we just call on Jehovah, say
Hmm.
Yeshua. And I can also engage in a very spiritual bath. Spiritual
Hmm.
bathing is
Mhm.
a part of my practice when I'm feeling heavy, because energy is in everything.
And
And
everything.
so, those are some examples of what supported me in my healing
Hmm.
journey. But the first road to all things was really being in spirit and
Hmm.
looking at what I enjoyed, because it
Hmm.
shouldn't feel like a burden. I think
Right.
Right.
sometimes if you're a person that likes to check box or a check off list of these are all the things I need to do for healing and to be closer to God, then
Mm.
that's not what we want.
Right. Right.
Because then it becomes a checklist. It's really in
Yeah.
discovering what,
Right.
how do I most experience
And
God, the
feeling,
divine
Mhm.
feeling through
within
it.
me.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mm.
and walking it all the way out. And
Mhm.
it's not going to look like always what you were taught. It can, but
Mhm.
it may be in a different way. I've
Mhm.
experienced God hugging trees. I've
Mhm.
experienced God smelling flowers as I'm taking a walk.
Mhm.
And so my practice also shifts as I'm a human becoming, shifting in my sacred season of life. My sacred season of
Absolutely.
life in menopause, I'm rediscovering God in a different way. And some of the way that I look at the world in my body.
Mhm.
And so I'm being more sacred and more gentle with my body. So one of my practices is that I will not scrub rigorously when I'm bathing. And I noticed I was doing that. And the sacred season that I'm falling into is I get to be more gentle with
Mhm.
how I'm doing. I get to, engage in this full practice of moisturizing my skin and
Mhm.
not rushing when I see these videos of women putting this stuff on, and I want to be, I'm in this menopausal, gentle, soft season that can
Mm.
feel brutal, but I get to be gentle and experiencing God in that with this beautiful body that
I
I'm
love
blessed with that
that.
goes in all these seasons.
Right.
Yes.
I see.
I love what you said about the spiritual practices. It sounds like they can be as ornate and elaborate as you want them to be, or they can be as simple as going on a walk in nature, smelling
Mhm.
flowers. I found that like my spiritual hygiene does include paying attention to the simple things and
Mhm.
and allowing the things that are naturally happening in my environment. If I just take a moment to look, these are things that I get to enjoy, and they're part of my healing process. They're part of my spiritual hygiene and my spiritual upkeep. The walks, getting my steps, yes, but also like observing the smell of grass when someone's out cutting the
Come
lawn
on now.
is
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, like I love it. I think
Mhm.
Tanisha, you and I talked about this. The wellness spaces can feel a little bit overwhelming because it's like you got to practice gratitude, you got to journal, you got to pray, you got to light your incense, you got to did you sage your house? It's like all the things.
All
All
the
the
things.
things.
So
Mm-mm.
it can, and it's great, right? Because I feel like it presents us with a menu. Like you get just like at a restaurant, you like, oh, I'll have that for my appetizer. This is my main course, right?
Mhm.
And the main course is prayer for some folks. The main course might be purpose-driven work, like
Mhm.
something like doing something like in Bloom is the main course for me in this
Mhm.
season.
That's
Mhm.
right.
So I love that. I really do love that. Another thing that you said that we spoke about earlier too, is we spoke about off camera, is this aspect of what is happening for me versus to.
Mm.
Mm.
I see.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh
Oh,
my goodness.
because it don't feel like that as you're navigating it,
No,
right?
Mhm.
no.
Whatever the it is.
It
Mhm.
Mhm.
doesn't. It doesn't. I think there's so much to be said about being able to transmute. Like a
Mhm.
phoenix, right? A phoenix is the bird that eats poisonous stuff, and they have these bright, vibrant colors. I
Mm.
mean, that's the concept of this mythical creature. And it really is like, as women, when we're able to do that, it's really like you are transforming into something else.
Mm.
It's just a
Transformation.
Beyond
transformation.
transformation all the way on to transfiguration,
Yeah.
which
Mm.
is it's like going from freedom to liberation, which
Mm.
Mm,
looks and feels different. And it's when you speak to the menu, it's all about choice and where spirit is. And so as we're, I invite the opportunity, like to, we get to release the words, I have to do this, I get to have a
Mm.
beautiful adventure with God, with source, with God of my understanding on my life journey. And that could look different any day of the week, any
Mm.
hour. Sometimes even washing dishes, I opt to not put my dishes in the dishwasher, because when I'm washing my dishes, I'm having this dialogue and this inner communion, and sometimes
Mm.
external communion with God. That's part of my practice.
yeah.
So
Mm.
the communion is happening all throughout the day.
Right.
Everything we know is prayer.
Mm.
Resuscitate, everything that we're
Mhm.
speaking is a prayer.
Yeah.
So when we're
Mm.
mindful of that, that translates from prayer into our practice, because the intention is to
Right.
always be in connection with the divine. So when we
Mhm.
have wellness folks out here, coming from sometimes a place of superiority, and they're speaking, you shouldn't do this. And if you're doing this, do you even know what you're doing? It's about
Mm.
coming from the oneness
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
God within, and moving from that space.
Mm.
And we get to do that, not have to. It's what I get to do as I'm expressing with God in, as, and through me. God is
Mhm.
expressing as me in
Mhm.
everything I say, and everything, in all ways that I be,
Come
Mm.
on.
from the breath to
Mm.
the way that I move. And so when we're intentional about that, we don't, we can receive information. And that's what I say when I listen to and I say, oh, this beloved person sharing information, we get to, as our elders and eldresses used to say, chew up the meat and spit out the bone. There are some wellness practitioners. I was like, oh, that was yummy. That's good. And then others, I'm like, okay, that's an offering for someone else. That's not for me. No blame, no shame, no heat, no judgment, no guilt. It's just not, it's not me.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to know the difference of what is and what isn't. And so we want to be mindful of what we're taking on, because folks are telling us, and be intentional about, what does spirit say? That is the divine authority is in me, not out there.
Right. I say.
Okay.
Tanisha, Rev Coach, you go by many names. So, and I know that these were bestowed upon you from Inner Visions Institute for Spiritual Development. So, first of all, what are your names? What names have you been bestowed? And what was that experience like for you working with Mama Iyanla?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I also want to give honor to my grandmother. My middle name is Audrey, my mother's mother, and that means noble. So that was my given name. And of course, Tanisha, it means beautiful. My parents named me Tanisha because my dad loved the name. And little history behind my name, it was actually spelled Tanisha. And I recently learned in interviewing my dad, I said, Dad, I've never asked you or Mom why the I is after the H. And he said, we actually spelled it we spelled it Tanisha. The registrar who did my birth certificate accidentally placed an I there, and my father and mother loved it and kept it. And so I found that out less than 2 years ago. So I always share that story. And of course, my mother named me after her mom, Audrey, and that means noble. What Inner Visions bestowed for me in my spiritual life coaching experience was Adeola. So Adeola means the crown brings honor. And I'm going to speak to both experiences together. When I moved into the ministerial program, which was almost within the same year that I completed my coaching, a few months later, I applied to ministry and was accepted, and went through that experience for 3 years and graduated in May. And you all were present for that experience where I was first learned of my name, and that name was Adevo. Adevo means nothing but God can change my destiny. And so the experience for both experiences were unique and incredibly beautiful. It was a rites of passage. It was a coming home back to myself, even understanding when we received our certificates, we understood the deeper meaning. They couldn't go into everything at graduation, but they gave us some personal information and history, not only behind our name, but behind what is our strength and our practice. And for me, it's prayer and praise. And my element is water. There were reasons, that was given to me, but given my experience and what my elders, my spiritual teachers had witnessed. And so it was a journey of returning home in a remembrance of the truth of who I am, being able to find my voice, being able to, a lot of it for me was intimidating. A lot of my work was being able to get away from the approval of others, specifically adults. I found, because of how I was raised, that even if an elder, if they say it's right or wrong, even if my intuition or my inner knowing is like, that doesn't feel right for me, I would go with it. And so a large part of my journey, even when, I came face to face with beloved Mama Ia sharing an experience with me, and I had to say that's not my experience, that's not how I feel yet, and I had to be able to verbalize that to someone I deeply love and respect and breathe through it. That was a big part of my journey, and I was actually loved through it by beloved Mama Ia and by faculty, because I was finding my voice and saying, this experience or what was shared is not in alignment with where my thought and my feeling is. And so this is why, and so boundaries was important for me on my journey. So everyone that comes to the spiritual life coaching program, for the Intervisions Institute for Spiritual Development and the ministerial program for the Institute, which is also the Intervision Spiritual Sanctuary. Everyone is on a different journey of discovery. For mine, it was about boundaries, finding my voice, trusting myself. And it was about the remembrance of returning home to the God essence of who I am. And that's what it was for me. And for ministry, it goes even deeper. So all the triggers will show up about, what's happened in life and how it was approached and what your areas that you heal through, areas that I healed through. I'm like, I thought I healed through that in coaching. Well, it came back up because I'm in this experience with 11 other beautiful souls on my line. And so you're seeing mirror images of your mother, of your father, of your cousin, of the adults in your life, and you're navigating your individual experience while others are navigating theirs, but you're all mirror images. And so there's levels to healing. And so I released the language that, I healed through that, I'm good. There's levels to it. And then the more awareness we have, and the more awareness that was happening for me, I began to become even more vulnerable. So vulnerability was big work for me, where I had to really surrender to being vulnerable in a community where I'm the one always asking, how are you doing? What's going on? And I kind of got called on that. Like, oh, you're the one on the line and I was the middle of the line, and I am a middle child. I'm all, the one that makes sure everyone's okay. So all of it, when you're in an experience like that, who you are in the world, it shows up even more when you're in this experience, and you're invited to unpack it all. Because if you're going to minister to others and support them, you have to thine self be true. You have to really know yourself and really know what your triggers are, because, there have been people that have caused spiritual harm because they didn't do the work.
Right.
And in Intervisions, what makes it unique is you are called, you will do your work. You will not hide. There is no hiding.
And that's
you can try it, but it won't work out for you too well.
Right.
It won't feel
especially
good.
if you're really being called to develop this greater relationship with yourself, right? Because we love to hide. And the practice that we get is hiding from ourselves the most. I want to expand a little bit on all you've been sharing, just all the juiciness of that. And of course, in your bio, you mentioned, or we mentioned, that you are a member of the Black Women's Leadership Forum. So I want to just shift a little bit to talk about Black women and our experiences. So what is unique about the healing journey for Black women? Right? Like, we all need to heal. Like, everybody needs to heal, women in particular, but Black women in particular. So what's unique about our healing journey?
Yes. So as I always say, we are the cradle of humanity. All things began with us. And I think there was an interruption in what has happened to our ancestors, and the intergenerational trauma and all of that, for the interruption that happened by our ancestors who were enslaved. And I think for us as Black women, our healing journey is so crucial. First, it's the importance of knowing who we are, that we are the essence and very fabric of life and humanity. What makes it unique is that our experience, our lens of life looks different than anyone else. We are the most vulnerable in this country, on this soil, because of what happened, because of enslavement, because of even what happened post, and what is happening today. I think that there is this continued belief that we are strong, we're resilient, and it's literally taken a lot of our Black women out. And so the importance of our healing journey is first in taking care of ourselves. We are the least protected demographic, yet the most resilient. And so to have that duality with all of that has happened in all of who we are, it's knowing that our healing is not for ourselves. When we're doing our healing, we're doing ancestral healing for what happened, and for who we are now, and for who is to come.
Right.
It's not just for ourselves. And I believe that always first begins with sister folks that we're in sistership with and
Mhm.
eldership with. There was an interruption of
Right.
eldership because of enslavement. There was an
Mhm.
interruption of rites of passage,
Right.
and how we were ushered into our womanhood. And
Mhm.
so now we get back to
Yeah.
what was
Right.
Reclaim all of that.
ancestral.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and I think healing is a big part of that. And many of
Mhm.
us are learning for the first time or relearning what
Right.
that looks like, because we were raised by strong women. And I think I shared yesterday, my grandmother, her parents were enslaved. And so
Mhm.
when you think about that, I wasn't far removed from me being
Right.
raised by a grandmother whose parents were enslaved. There were
Right.
thoughts, feelings, patterns that interrupted,
Mhm.
the very cycle of what was hundreds of years ago to how
Mhm.
she showed up in her strength. I can't remember, and I'm just thinking of this now. Did I ever see my grandmother cry?
Mm.
I
Mm.
don't think I did.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
don't think I did. I don't remember. I remember rigid. I remember preparation for all of y'all for the outside
Mhm.
world. I remember hard.
Right.
I remember
Yeah.
resilient. I remember faith. My grandmother was the medicine woman of the projects.
Mhm.
If you had a problem, apartment 5E, you knocked on a door, you asked for Miss Audrey. She fixed it for you.
Mhm.
She knew her power, and she
Mhm.
used it for good, and she used it in other ways.
Ways. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and
Okay.
so I think the healing for us, for me, it actually began with learning the practices for my grandmother, being connected with source, watching my mother and her pattern of raising and how they raised me, and then
Mhm.
this divine shift that happened within me. But before the shift happened,
Mhm.
I was in all these other relationships with women. We all in relationships called toxic trauma bonded relationships,
Mhm.
all unhealed Black women,
Yeah.
not being kind to each other, but we weren't being
Right.
kind to ourselves.
Right.
And I'm grateful for those relationships, because the expression of who I was at that time needed
Mhm.
those relationships. And
Right.
and so those seasons closed as I unpacked another level of healing, which I still to this day believe I do for myself, my mother, my daughter, my grandmother, all
Mhm.
before and all
Mhm.
ahead. And so I
Right.
think it's critical that we look at our healing, but in order to do that, looking at the divine feminine essence of who we
Mhm.
are,
Mm.
starting with our relationship with God.
Mm.
Ashe.
Yeah.
Ashe. Yeah, I was I have this idea because the talking about the interruption, right? So in our own family, like I've been the beneficiary of certain things that I got from my mother and from her mother. And but being from the islands, right, that I had access to my grandmother in a very limited way, right? So most of that, like I did get a chance to meet my grandmother in person, and she would send me a little letter, and she sent me little things, but not necessarily often, but things that I treasure. But my children had a fuller relationship with
Yeah.
their grandmother than I had with my grandmother.
Mm.
So, but the connection is still there. And we have this one photo of my mother, my sister, her daughter, and her daughter's daughter. So there's four generations in this photograph. And there's also my sister and I and our daughters. So you have the women with this line.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful photograph. And so part of, as we move into purpose, like I part of our feminine history in our family has been sort of like an interruption, some trauma, just some things that happened and how we responded to those. And so part of my journey is sort of to um part of my purpose, not necessarily my journey, my purpose. Like one of the things that I know I'm supposed to do is to help bring that together. And what I realize is that between my sisters, and my brother who has two daughters. Like I have nieces who don't even know each other.
Yes.
And and then my niece, my oldest niece, has two daughters, right? And they're in their 20s now. So you know what I mean? And
Yep.
but we've not had the only time that we've really been together, any significant time, is around a funeral.
Someone died.
And
Someone
so
transitioned.
yeah, so part of
Yeah.
what I want to do for the Black women in my line, right, is to bring us together so that we get to know each other, and so that we can think about relationships with each other in a different way,
Yeah.
right? Like the narrative out there doesn't have to be our narrative. And I love when you say we don't have to sit in that what was, right? We get to write a new beginning.
That's right.
So so one of my nieces or my daughters will think when it's their time, right? And I'm no longer here, right? It's like, okay, the women, we need to do that. And it's so important because of epigenetics,
That's
right?
it.
What we have inside of our bodies. We never think about those things, like how we respond to certain things and how things trigger us, but for no doggone reason.
That's right.
And part of it has to do with our epigenetics. And I just wanted to share this. This just came to me. Um, and I don't know if I talked about this before, but I was in a um I in my previous job, we were doing a workshop or a summit some day that we were getting together with different people. And for the icebreaker opening activity, we had some young people who designed it for us because it was, we had young people were working, some elders, right? And black and white. So it was everybody was in the room. And the experience that they identified was something like you had to stand across from a person, and when they clapped their hands, one person had to chase another one around the room. And then when they clapped their hands again, then it would switch, right? So you have about like 30 people running all over the space, right? And young people like to do that. That's a young people's activity. I was standing across the person I was standing across from was this tall white man. And I knew him, and he was a gentle person. Like I knew him as a gentle person. But I'm gonna tell you, he was to chase me first. I'm gonna tell you, when they clapped their hands and we had to start running, I immediately went into fight or flight.
Yeah.
It was not a game for me.
Wow.
And everybody was running around laughing and I was yelling at the top of my lungs, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And what I knew was if he got close to me, because it was a game of tag, he was just needed to tap me. I was going to clock him,
Yep.
right? He was going to catch both these hands because I felt like I was running for my life.
Yes.
And I knew that that was an experience that one of my ancestors had running from a white man on the plantation.
It's real.
That's what I felt. I knew that in my bones. So when we start talking about epigenetics, right, and how we are experiencing things that this never happened to me before, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from your bloodline, right?
That's it.
And that we have to do the work now to understand what that is, and that we are not reacting to it, but
Yep.
we are responsive and understand what we need to be. So
Yes.
this whole work with Black women and why it looks different for us, it's so important, and it's really, really important that we start with our family. So I just really wanted to
I love
share that.
that.
Yeah. Even when you
That.
Tanisha, when you mentioned the piece about Black women carrying things and it literally taking us out, the churning
Yes.
stress of doing it
Absolutely.
all and being everywhere and everything to everybody is one of those things that I do feel like we carry. It came from a place of having to be that, for whatever reason, historically in this country, that's
Bible.
our nature. And we carry that now. It's something that you have it coming from an epigenetic standpoint, but you also have it being modeled for us, like
That's right.
the backbreaking load that we carry quietly. And it's time to set some things down. It's time to really be picky and choosy about the things that we devote our time to and establish those boundaries. As much as people give us flack for our sass, we really historically don't do well with boundaries when it comes to our families and our responsibilities to each other. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh,
Right.
I got to put on my mask first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we get to do better. So whenever I say, we're not doing this, and we get to do better.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find really interesting that we don't talk enough about is our history was interrupted, but I want to just remind us, I can't leave this space without saying, and we are the interruption. And so I'm the interruption in my family. Every generation, there's one that interrupts. Usually it's the black sheep. Usually it's what they call the black sheep. Usually the one that always is questioning, well, why is that? And probably got popped for asking, why is that? Usually it's the one who said, it didn't feel right when people would just grab me and hug me. My internal was like, I didn't want to, but the adults in my life forced me to. And that threw our internal intuition clocks off. But, and I want to say that each of us are interruptions. If we say yes, when we receive the sacred call and whisper, that one right there is the one that is doing the work for this lineage. One of the things that I'm challenging myself to do is learn how to swim. Now I understand the story better behind why I've been so resistant. And I met with a shaman and I was like, I just can't get under this fear. I've gone to several spaces. I've tried. And like Eldra shared with what happened with that experience with the group. Well, the shaman shared with me, I see that you had an ancestor that as they were swimming, they were losing their breath. So and I walked out the entire experience of me being in the water. But when I get into the deep water, there's an issue with surrendering. And she said, it's this ancestral. And so we never know why we're triggered. We don't have all of the stories. And so I invite us to explore it when we can, because there's more to just the fear of swimming or the fear of, or why do I walk around with shame? And one of the things I learned was, my mother was a young mom, so she kept it quiet and had a lot of shame, even though she was married and had my sister that, oh, I'm a teenager, I'm pregnant again, but she was married, but she felt ashamed. And so I grew up releasing, in my experience as an adult, releasing a lot of shame, feeling ashamed, hiding a lot, feeling like unseen and things like that. And we're trying to figure out why. And now we know, and this is the work that I'm studying in my doctoral, that, trauma is transferred to the body in some really deep ways from from thousands of years ago. It's in our DNAs and our bloodline. And we are the interruption. And so the resilience we see, we should be celebrating. When we see some things, oh, our parents didn't rest or didn't get in sacred rest. Well, now we know sacred rest is medicine. And so now we know that we get to create a life that incorporates rest. We don't have to stay in the story of what they didn't do. Thank you, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, all the ancestors for what you did. And now we know better, we can do better, and we can incorporate some of what they did. Some of the medicine stuff my grandmother taught that I watch, I do right now. When doctors are like, do this, do that. I'm like, wait, my grandmother did this, that, and it worked. And so we don't have to take on everything, but I do take on a lot. And I also have brought closure to the areas in my bloodline that have not served our bloodline well, because I am the interruption. My work is in supporting women in their healing. Now, my daughter's work may look different. My son's work may look different. This is my work. And I think when we get there and each woman, each Black woman stand in our power in knowing that we have the power to interrupt these cycles, these patterns, that there is more, and we support each other on that journey, every bit of healing, what I've learned, heals another corner of the universe, another corner. So what someone thinks is, oh, I just did a little bit of healing here. It is a ripple effect. It is a big deal. And so we don't have to do the big healing. I got to go to the healing retreat. I got to bathe all of this. I got to do all of these things. It's how we be. And it's our connection to our divinity.
In our lineage, it ripples in our lineage and outside of our lineage, the women that we touch. And a light switch for another woman, which is like, that's the reason why. Like, even if today you don't go and, turn your life around, you know what I'm saying? Or like take up space, which is more in alignment with my belief system. But like, it's just that little small seed that is planted, and it's a modeling that we do, even when folks who you don't think are looking, watching us take up space, watching us choose joy, watching us go through something unimaginable. Y'all know my story. And still decide to claim what's yours in this life. It's a seed planted for somebody else that benefits community. I think in the last episode I said the best thing we can do for a community is to heal ourselves. And this point that you make, Tanisha, and that we're all making here, it just resonates even more deeply, because the work is going to, I hate to say rising tides lift all ships, but in this sense, the rising tide will lift other ships. So.
Right. And not to call negativity in this space, the opposite is also true. When you don't heal yourself, you negatively impact others. Right. Right. People don't just bump into you and say, "Oh, let me just move this way." They're impacted. So that ripple can be, can go in the other way as well. Right. So
and into our bodies. So that negative response goes into our bodies. It makes us sick and can show up also as ailments, which can be another part too for another time, because I know where we are with time, but there is a connection.
There is such, and that's so important.
There's no separation between body, mind, spirit.
Yeah. I want to go into some rapid questions to close us up, but I do want to highlight, in our previous call, we talked with an esthetician who does like healing work, holistic healing work. And one of the things that struck me, what she said was, when she started doing her own shadow work and healing work, her skin changed on its own. Her skin changed on its own. And your stress hormones will show that your body will be doing the things, like happy people who are in happy, peaceful relationships, who regulate their nervous systems, that transfers, that shines outward as beauty. No makeup, no, whatever. And it's an example of what it looks like on the inside. When we are in toxic, stressful environments, I don't care what you think you're putting on your face, it's going to show.
You see it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And I can relate to that, because I've had, when you've had those times when you like nothing seems right. Right. It's like, oh, I tried this. Sometimes I used to like get ready for work, and it would take me an hour and a half because nothing was appropriate. Right. And you end up like, oh, I'm just going with this. And that's the energy that you're putting out there. Right. I can attest to that. I can attest to that. When you're doing the work, right, it shows up differently on your face and on your body. I'm healed.
On a biological level, on a hormonal level.
Absolutely.
Like, when they say stress kills, it's the overproduction of certain hormones in your body that begin to tax your organs. That's a whole nother conversation.
Whole nother podcast.
And the holding of our breath when we don't realize we're doing it. And so that's why it's really, part of the message I hope that those listening take away is it can start as simple as just being aware. Just being aware and paying close to, where do I tense up my body? What's my thought pattern? What are my thoughts looking like? Because sometimes we go to fix, well, I'm having this issue with my skin, or I'm having this issue with this medical, or I'm having this issue with this relationship, this person, this work. The first place to go is within, and checking our energy and checking in with our alignment and our thought patterns and what we think about ourselves. And something Eldridge said yesterday, if I have permission to share this, when we were talking about gray hair, and I had shared, I'm waiting for my gray hair to come in a little bit more. And, Eldris is such a sage, because she speaks with wisdom without even realizing like how much of a bucket she poured into me of wisdom yesterday, because I'm like, it's coming in all kind of way. It's kind of metallic. So, I do get some coloring. And one thing she said was, I said, how did this happen for you? Because your gray is so beautiful. And we saw another sister girl with some beautiful salt and pepper gray. And she said, and she just sounded like, oh, when I just surrendered and accepted it, it just started to come in like this. And I was like, Oh my goodness.
That's
The
the
holy
key.
grail of
Right.
what this whole life experience is about is surrender. And so even when
Mm.
we surrender to the experience of, I surrender to let my body be and come forward as it may, and I accepted that even the way that our grade grows in, and so it
Mhm.
is. It's what we think about it. And I was like, I'm gonna start talking more gently in terms of how my grades, oh, here it is,
Mhm.
it's coming in. Okay, it's almost, it's not just around the edges no more. It's coming forward
Mhm.
and embracing it more. So to say, here, see this, I gotta pluck this, I gotta color this. And I'm like, wow, as in,
Mhm.
moments before, we're talking about language around arms. And I
Mhm.
was literally having this internal dialogue about my language, about my hair, and how my grade comes in. And so
Mm.
that's why awareness is the first step,
Right.
because that piece of
Gotta catch it.
awareness,
Yeah.
now I'm going to be mindful. Even as I'm doing my hair, I'm nurturing my sides, and all of that. Now I'm more aware of
Mhm.
being more gentle in my conversation, even about my hair,
I
because
say.
my intention is to have a beautiful full head of salt and pepper hair. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And so as I'm saying, the little pieces are coming and they look metallic and I don't like this. And I said, how did this work for you? She said, I used to dye mine. And then, one day I made the decision that I'm just going to let it come in. And that's when it came in. And I was like, holy grail,
Secret sauce.
wisdom. This is what this life is about. Surrender, the awareness part of that, and moving in spirit with that. Because from us resisting, restricting our breath, like we're all learning how to breathe more and taking a breath, to, simply our language around what we say to ourselves or about
Yes.
ourselves, bumping
Mhm.
into something. No, I had a
Mhm.
moment, I missed a beat and bumped into something, but I'm not clumsy. The
Right.
other day, I asked someone for directions. I said, I just need directions. I began to say that I was directionally challenged. That's not my language anymore.
Right.
So the
Right.
Right.
awareness is what's important. And I had said that for so many years because I heard that before. You're
Mhm.
book smart, but common sense smart, you're not. So again,
Ooh.
it's relearning,
Mhm.
releasing. And what that transferred into was, how did I get lost and I'm on this road and I only had to turn around? And I just didn't know where I was. It's no big deal. I get to
Right.
ask for directions. That does not mean I'm directionally challenged. Tanisha, where do we get that language from?
Yeah.
Right.
Reg Coach, we released that language. We just needed a
Yeah.
little support.
Release.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay to need support.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
We
Mhm.
are going to move
Self-talk.
into, yes, positive
Yeah.
self-talk and releasing the negative self-talk, honey.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game. We are going to move into a rapid fire question segment for our guests. So, Tanisha, these are just quick answer questions, which will support us in closing out today's wonderful, wonderful session. Starting with, and you're finishing the sentence. Blooming means,
Mm. Coming into the fullness and wholeness of my divine feminine essence.
feminine
Mhm.
essence.
Mhm.
Yes.
Healing.
That's another podcast.
Listen, right.
Yes.
Divine
Yes.
feminine
Feminine
essence.
essence.
The essence.
Yes.
Healing
Yes.
requires.
Awareness and self-love
Mm.
and
Mhm.
surrender.
Awareness, self-love, and surrender.
Surrender and self-love. Yep.
Right now, I am becoming.
An even more beautiful soul individualized expression of God.
Hmm.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
I say.
Tanisha, share how listeners can connect with you before we head on.
Yes, so my website is beyondthismoment.com. My Facebook is Beyond This Moment Coach, and that is also my Instagram, Beyond This Moment Coach. And so I welcome you all to the journey because there's
Yeah,
more, there's more,
yeah.
there's more.
Beautiful.
And I'll
Beautiful.
also share that Tanisha hosts a prayer line, which is amazing. It's a
Yes.
daily Monday through Friday prayer line, which I am a member of. And if you tap in, you'll find that it's a wonderful resource. I can attest.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
Tanisha, thank you so much for joining us today. It was wonderful, as always, to spill some spiritual tea with you, some coaching tea, and just have these wonderful moments together. And I'm sure the value of your wisdom is going to be really impactful for our listeners. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And Eldris, you have anything to say, closing remarks?
I would just echo the gratitude for you being with us today. As always, you bring light. You said light recognizes light, and yours is always beaming and always so fulfilling when you share it with us. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the energy that you love you.
Thank you. I received that and extended and humbly grateful for the opportunity. Thank you for creating a beautiful, safe, loving, blooming space. This is a sanctuary of love, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last word to
Blessings.
listeners, if you enjoyed this interview, head over to Spotify, Women in Bloom. Check out all of the episodes that are available if you're watching on YouTube. And similarly, if you're listening on Spotify and you enjoyed this and you want to check out the video component, head over to YouTube and check out the many episodes we have available. If you are interested in coaching with Jasmine, you can head to inbloomwithjasmine.com to learn more. And that is it for us today.
Yes.
Blessings.